It's seeming to get incredibly difficult to use our credit card points for booking good flights. Why is this happening? Today, we're going to discuss that exact reason and what you can do about it. My name is Sean, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherwin. So in this podcast episode of the Credit Card BS show, we're going to be talking about this phenomenon that I've sort of seen becoming more and more common, mostly around the time of the pandemic, but it's kind of stayed post-pandemic as well. So airlines will typically open a number of award seats that is far fewer than the total number of seats they are selling for revenue on a flight. And this is especially relevant for business and first class, one of the juicier redemptions that we're interested in using our credit card points on. Now, the issue is that since the pandemic, I've seen an increase of airlines opening a different number of award seats to their own members versus partners. So if they have like saver availability, they may open, for example, 3 to 4 seats to people using their own miles, but only 0, 1, 2 seats to their partners. And that actually makes it a lot more difficult for us to use our credit card points in the traditional ways that, blogs and videos have taught us, which is maximizing partner redemptions. So one example that comes to mind is Eva Air that I'm going to talk more about in today's episode. But Sean, were there other examples that come to your mind?
Yeah, there's other examples like Cathay is notorious for this. This has kind of happened a little bit with like Qantas and Etihad. Etihad actually doing it a lot now as well. But Cathay for me is the most notorious example of this and has been driving me nuts.
Yes. So I think we need to back up and talk about the idea of partner redemptions first. So we generally like booking with partners through alliances rather than directly through an airline a lot of the times because A, they often charge fewer miles than, literally using airline A's miles on partner B can often be cheaper than using airline B's miles directly, which is very interesting, but that's just generally how the award charts work. So that's one reason. B, the partners can be more readily available as transfer partners from credit card ecosystems. And C, oftentimes using the partners can actually have fewer hoops to jump through than the actual airline's own program, which can be more complicated or more difficult to use. Sean, what are some examples of really good sweet spots where it's actually more favorable generally to book using a partner rather than the airline itself?
These can be seen across the board. So like one example is with booking ANA. So if I want to fly ANA business class to Japan, you might think I want to use ANA miles. Now, this may be a bit of a bad example because it's actually a very good deal to use ANA miles. But the problem with ANA is you have to book a round trip ticket to do a redemption or like an open jaw ticket. I can't just simply book a one-way ticket from LAX to Tokyo. That's not allowed. So let's say I want to fly ANA business. A much easier and more hassle-free way to do it is via Virgin Atlantic miles because they have a direct partnership. So with Virgin, I can just book a one-way ticket. Simple as that. And if I transfer points into Virgin, they never expire. ANA points expire within 3 years of being transferred. And so it's like, it's a lot easier to just use Virgin miles because I don't have to find the return ticket because maybe I want to fly back a different way. I want to continue on more into Asia or whatever. But it's a lot easier to use Virgin miles. That's one. Another one's like Cathay. This is about to change actually, like with the Alaska. This did change the Alaska award chart change. But like previously, Cathay Pacific business class from the US to Hong Kong was only 50,000 Alaska miles. Absurdly cheap. But with Cathay, it's 84,000 Asia miles. So it's like, if I have the Alaska miles, way cheaper. Alaska charges a much more reasonable, only $12.50 cancellation fee, whereas Cathay Pacific is a $120 cancellation fee. So it's like, why would I use Cathay Pacific miles if I could use Alaska miles, pay less, have more flexibility? So there's a lot of examples of this.
Yeah, these are really good examples. I mean, the Virgin Atlantic one especially stands out to me considering the fact that, Virgin transfers from a lot of different currencies, whereas ANA is harder to earn. It only comes from Amex, as well as just like ANA transfers from Amex taking 2 to 3 days where the availability could evaporate after you found it. Whereas, a Virgin transfer is typically instant and you can get on the phone and try to get it done really quickly because a lot of times these trying to find availability is about stashing it as soon as you see it before someone else takes it because it's just that rare. Now, So I want to focus back on the main thing I wanted to bring up today, which is the idea of airlines opening more seats and more availability to people using their own miles as opposed to partners. So we just talked about the great advantages of booking through partners. But at the end of the day, if there's no availability through the partners, there's no redemption, period. Right? So when does it make sense to start considering using the airline's own mileage program, even if it's less favorable, simply because they have more availability? So one example that has really gotten me thinking about this is EVA Air, which is a Taiwanese airline that I personally really enjoy. They have a great business class product, but they've become really hard to book with partners. Before the pandemic, it was a really good redemption. It's just like a Star Alliance business award ticket from the US to Taiwan or something. But now, it seems they open maybe 3 to 4, if not more, like business class tickets to people redeeming using their own EVA miles. But Star Alliance, they've just dwindled it down to 0 or 1 business class seats per flight. And it's just extremely hard to come by. Not to mention, EVA also has upgrade space, or you can purchase like economy or premium economy and then use their own miles to upgrade to business. And those are much easier to come by than using the partners. And yeah, this has become a big conundrum for me to think about, because EVA booking through them has several disadvantages. So one is they charge way more miles. It's 75,000 one way from the West Coast to Taiwan, but it's 95,000 round trip, not one way, but round trip through ANA. So that's a huge difference. 150,000 round trip using your own miles versus 95,000 through ANA. Additionally, EVA miles only transfer 1-to-1 from Citi thank you points, which are harder to earn, and Citi is not something that most people have access to, unlike Chase or Amex, which are more ubiquitous. And the third reason is that EVA has horrible IT. Their website is intractable. You're very picky about the policy of using your miles to book award seats for someone else, and they don't allow you to combine miles between people to make a redemption. It's a whole sort of mess with that. So much more hoops to jump through, more expensive, fewer credit card transfer partner options. So what do we do here? So Sean, I want to pause here before I give my opinion and kind of ask you what you think of these types of situations. I mean, I'm using EVA as one particular example, but this has become sort of a norm for many airlines.
Yeah, I think it's really situational, dependent on how bad the situation is. So if it's something where, look, it's harder to get availability via the partner programs, but still theoretically achievable if you are lucky or do the research, set an alert, something like that. So I think like something like ANA first class, where, look, it's really hard to book. I'm not going to lie. But you go to seats.air, look at the ANA first class searcher tool. There are seats. They do exist. They may not always be the dates you want or the airport you want or the number of seats you want, but they exist. They're theoretically possible to book. So for something like that, I would say, look, if you can still stick with the partner redemption, get the better deal, go for it. But it gets trickier if it's something like you're mentioning, like with EVA, where there's just nothing. Or with my example, Cathay Pacific just releasing 0. And I mean, like, quite literally speaking, like unexaggerating, 0 award seats to their partner Alaska Airlines, where it is impossible, in premium cabins at least, where it is impossible to book anything. For example, I've had alerts set for months at a time where I want to find any premium cabin seat in premium, business, or first from the US to Hong Kong or Hong Kong to the US, where Cathay Pacific's based in Hong Kong. No alert, nothing. It doesn't exist. 0, nada, none. So in that case, it's like, yeah, we have to start moving on to direct with the airline if I want to be able to book that seat, because it just doesn't exist. If it's something where it's possible to do, but more difficult, I'm more flexible staying with the partner program. If the partner program provides like additional flexibility, if it's a better deal, if it's easier to acquire the points, those kind of things. I think, what are your thoughts on that?
I think those are really good points. I generally agree with them. I would say, though, at the end of the day, you need to realize what the point of like miles and points are, which is to be able to do these cool redemptions, right? At the end of the day, if there is no availability, there is no redemption, and points do not have value until they are redeemed. The value of them is just a number, and they're not realized until they are redeemed. So, for the EVA Air case, I now strongly urge people who are interested in flying EVA business to Taiwan because they need to or they want to go to Taiwan to, like, for example, invest in city thank you points to transfer to EVA Air 101 and to do the redemption, even if it's more expensive than, ANA, because it's just so hard to book it that way. And I don't know, at the end of the day, I feel like you can always earn more points. But like, if you really want to experience something, even if it's going to cost you more points, if there's no like, common, better, other way, you might just need to do it. Just suck it up and pay the higher pricing for the actual airline instead of going through a partner. If that's the only way it's going to give you availability. Like with EVA, it is astounding what the difference is. We're talking, 3 to 5 seats available for their own members per flight and 0 to 1 for partners. It's really impossible now, I feel like, for the most part, to get, like round trip through ANA or something.
I totally agree with that, as long as it is the case that we have to be careful about the availability is always good thing, because what happens is there are programs, let's like a bad example, that's United, where if I want to fly business class on United and I got United miles, 90% of the time I can get a seat. The issue is not the availability. The problem with something like United is because it's a dynamic price, and because their award chart, even for like their own miles, just sucks. It's a problem of like, okay, yeah, I could redeem a seat, but it's so expensive that, like, yes, they've made all this availability open. Like, if I got a bunch of United miles, basically no United flight I can't get on. But it's so expensive, it like defeats the entire purpose of miles. But I will agree with you on, for the case like something like EVA, where it is still a fixed award chart that is, while not as competitively priced as ANA, because it is still competitively priced for US to Asia business class, that it's totally valid to say that you need to be earning EVA miles if you want to fly EVA. For something, if it's like United, if I want to fly United, it would be a tough argument to say I need to earn United miles, even with the amazing flexibility, just because it's so expensive to redeem on United that it's like, at that point, it's like, might as well have no availability.
I agree. Like, I've seen, like a one-way business class flight on United when it's not saver pricing go for like 200,000 miles or something. Like, yeah, I'm, though that it just doesn't interest me. I'm probably not going to spend that many miles. I'm more focused on the, I don't know if you'll call them an edge case, but the cases where, it's still fairly reasonably priced. Like, to be clear, like when you're booking directly with EVA, you can still get 4 to 5 cents per point on these redemptions. It's just not as crazy good value as like the ANA redemption. But I think, so my overall point is that we need to shift our strategy from solely focusing on partners that charge the fewest points for an award toward a strategy that takes into account both that as well as other factors such as award availability, right? And this is becoming more and more case after the pandemic, when these airlines just want to restrict their awards for their own members, and it sucks, but that's just the game we need to learn how to play. We need to improvise and adapt all the time. These things constantly change. And I think it also emphasizes the importance of diversifying credit card points. I keep telling people who are content with their Chase only or Amex only setup that they're probably missing out on something, not only because they're leaving a bunch of points and bonuses on the table, but also because there are just some partners and some awards that need to be booked in a certain way that only have certain partners. Like if you want EVA miles, Chase or Amex is not going to help you. You got to get into the city thank you points, right? And there are plenty of other examples as well.
I definitely agree. And I think it's also important to discuss like how there's not only the issue with airlines just releasing very little partner availability, but picking and choosing what partners they want to release the availability to. So we've seen this with a couple things similar, like with Cathay. I'm going to bring up Cathay again, where Alaska, 0 of any kind. But if you go to like British Airways, which is also a one world partner, much more, much easier to book. So what's up with that? Why, we know why they're doing it, because Alaska charges way fewer miles than British Airways, So Cathy's going, let's release them to British Airways. I'm assuming the reimbursement rate is higher too for British Airways than Alaska. And then, so that's why, like Alaska, we're getting nothing here. So that's also an annoying thing. And it also happened with Qantas and Alaska, where Qantas had this big award dump of business class and first class award space to Australia from Los Angeles. And I wanted to book Qantas first. But when I go to Alaska, it's saying, hey, there's nothing there. But I go to Expert Flyer, I'm checking the partner availability, and it's like, no, it's very, very clearly there. So I call up Alaska. I'm like, I know there's saver level space. What's going on? They just can't access it. AA, no problem. You call up AA, they were able to book it, no problem. But so like now these partners are like picking, or these airlines are picking and choosing what partners they want to release award space to, which is making it more frustrating entirely, because you could, like, let's say there is partner space open and you have the most optimal currency to book that airline. It still might not be able to be booked with that currency, even when there's partner availability.
Yeah, I think another trend to keep in mind is just that in general, these really wanted awards are just getting harder and harder to come by. So if you see something available that you like or are interested in booking and have the points to do it, just do it. Do it. Because the more you wait, the more devaluations we're going to see, the less availability we're going to see, the more people that find out, the harder it will be to book, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like this is one of the games where, like, if you see it, you should do it.
Absolutely. These points are not getting more and more valuable over time. Earn and burn.
Yeah. Okay, I think this covers this topic pretty well. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a comment below on if you have any thoughts, as well as like this video. Please subscribe. It greatly helps support this channel. If you're interested in earning a lot of points and miles for your trips, or interested in opening a credit card for any reason, please consider using one of our links down in the description below. It greatly helps support the channel. And finally, Sean, why don't you plug our Discord?
If you want to connect with an elite group of credit card enthusiasts and award travelers entirely for free, check out the Travel Lane Discord at the link in the description or at the pinned comment below. Sherwin and I are in there. A bunch of experts are in there entirely for free, nothing for sale. You will learn a ton, I promise you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.